In the distant Urals, there was an active and lively pooch named Bonnie. She adored kids and showed her happiness by cheerfully swinging her tail whenever she saw people around. However, everything took a turn one day. The whole grand family, along with the lively dog Bonnie, were having a great time at their vacation house in the countryside. It was time to pack up and leave. As they were loading their belongings into the vehicle, they absent-mindedly forgot to lock the gates. With a sudden gust of wind, the gate closed abruptly, causing Bonnie to run off in fear. Unbeknownst to her, her family left, leaving her out in the harsh winter. An hour later, the shaken-up dog returns to a vacant house. She looked around but didn't find a soul. The neighboring house was a residence to a family who were heavy drinkers. They saw the distressed dog and thought to capture her. Placing a rope around Bonnie's neck, they pulled her into their home. They kept her captive on a tight leash, lacking a soft bed or a doghouse to keep her warm. The sight of them walking towards her caused Bonnie to growl and tug at her chain. Her constant barking disturbed their discussions, driving Bonnie to throw whatever she can find at them. When bored, they taunted Bonnie with food by placing the food dish out of her reach because of her short chain. In the beginning, she tried tirelessly to break free despite the chain biting into her neck painfully, but eventually she surrendered. On one of these tormenting days, the house owner decided to use Bonnie as a target for his dart-throwing practice. Missing more often than not caused Bonnie great pain. On one instance, while coming close to retrieve the darts, Bonnie launched herself at him, sinking her sharp canines into his hand. This drove her wild. She broke free from her chain and attacked the man who armed himself with a brick. However, she didn't stick around to see the results. Instead, she bolted through the gate that was left open. Running off as far as she can was her only objective then. After scavenging something to eat from a dump nearby, she headed towards the highway. That is where her journey kicked off. The lone, vast stretch of asphalt was all she had. She felt it couldn't get any worse than the horrors she'd already experienced. She walked nonstop, except for when she rested by the roadside and ate what she managed to find. She was confused why she was left behind, why she had to go through all the pain, and what future held for her. Around halfway through her journey, after a series of restive days, Bonnie, cold and hungry, continued to tread along the road. Her paws had frozen, and her footpads were raw and inflamed. Something loudly approaching caught Bonnie's attention. It might be another thoughtless car, she considered. Abruptly, harsh front lights blinded her, and a truck swerved off the path, colliding with the canine. A loud crashing sound ensued as the small creature battled with the metal, hurling the dog into the trench. Intense pain coursed through the helpless body. The truck rapidly disappeared, leaving the dog in the snow with minor blood traces as the only indication of its existence. The canine struggled to rise, her paws numb. Pain rocketed up her spine, causing her to drop back into her frosty sepulcher. Unnoticed, cars sped past, with only tears trailing from her soft black eyes. She stayed conscious, enduring the pain and cold and the cacophony within her head for an estimated 10 hours. Eventually, energy depleted, consciousness faded. One day before the new year, Peter was headed home on this road, carrying a slew of presents. Upon deciding to halt to verify the location of his wallet, he ransacked his bag and spotted an oddity in the trench. He opted to investigate. He was greeted by a creature dusted with snow and seemingly lifeless, a puzzling sight given the distance from any populated area. He noticed traces of blood and realized it had been injured. The dog was alive but not responsive, breathing heavily, indicating deep frostbite. He couldn't abandon her, thus he gingerly picked her up. Peter transported Bonnie to his car and drove straight to the nearest pet clinic. In the vehicle, the dog began to heat up and started whimpering faintly, almost narrating her experiences. Peter subconsciously comforted the poor creature, promising that all would be better soon. At the pet clinic, surprise was prevalent. After the medical checkup, they said the dog must have been in that condition for at least 72 hours. The revelation shook everyone to the core, and a decision loomed: euthanasia or a grueling journey to recovery. Emotionally stirred, Peter chose the latter. She would be his New Year's gift. The family concurred and commenced efforts to save Bonnie's life. The new year was ushered in at the hospital, with Bonnie never left alone. Time slowly passed and Bonnie gradually returned to health until her release. 6 months later, she was seen cheerfully cavorting with her new caring family who had saved her from a certain undesirable fate. Life proceeded smoothly, and before long, the family expanded. A baby had recently become part of the household. The family dog, ever so caring and protective, was ceaselessly present, always ready to lend a paw and follow the little one everywhere. On a serene, moon-bathed evening, while tranquility had settled over the sleeping household, the child was in his own room. Suddenly, the dog sensed something awry and abruptly awoke. At this exact instance, the infant had become entangled in his blanket and started to gasp for air. Given his tender age, he was incapable of freeing himself, and his struggle was barely audible. The tiny one was flailing about helplessly without making much noise, and his terrified efforts were only causing further entanglement. Sensing this distress, Banya, the dog, sprang into action and raced into the parents' room, barking uproariously. The groggy parents initially didn't comprehend the urgency. Recognizing their slow response, Banya tried to nudge the mother awake by pulling at her sleepwear. When the parents finally rose, Banya was poised near the baby's door, still barking loudly. A wave of fear ran into the bewildered parents, and they hastily entered their son's bedroom. The baby had now ceased crying, and the swift mom untangled her son, enabling him to finally draw a steady breath. Banya ceased her warnings but paced the room anxiously, not able to settle down. The father summoned emergency services, who arrived after some time, checked the baby, and ascertained that there were no severe injuries to worry about. Once medical professionals had confirmed the baby's safety, Banya relaxed and nestled next to the baby. Laying her snout close to him, the sight of this moment was so emotionally moving that the father could not restrain his tears. The life he, himself, had once saved had returned the favor by securing the most precious life in his world. Dear viewers, if you found this narrative moving, do not hesitate to bestow a thumbs up and share the story with your contemporaries. If you're unfamiliar with our channel and haven't subscribed yet, I encourage subscribing immediately to ensure you don't miss another riveting tale just like this.